In Privacy Watch, Facebook has announced changes to its privacy features. It's an effort to help users block outside apps from accessing their data and make privacy tools easier to find. This comes after more than 50 million users' data was obtained by Cambridge Analytica.
Amid the backlash, the social network is also facing a new lawsuit filed in California, claiming the company improperly collected call and text logs from Android users. Zuckerberg is expected to testify before Congress as calls mount for the CEO to answer for these controversies.
Will you testify before Congress?
So the short answer is I'm happy to if it's the right thing to do.
After signaling his willingness last week, Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg seems ready to follow through. His company is under intense scrutiny following accusations that it mishandled the personal data of more than 50 million Facebook users, which ended up with British data firm Cambridge Analytica. Since the scandal broke, Facebook stock has tumbled by more than 17%, and the FTC has opened an investigation into the company's practices. In response to concerns, Facebook announced this morning it is consolidating privacy tools onto a single page and allowing users to choose which apps use their data.
This doesn't change any of the data that Facebook's actually collecting.
Kurt Wagner is senior editor of social media at Recode. He believes the real sign of change at Facebook is its CEO's behavior.
It does feel like this is a bigger moment than we've seen in the past from some of these tech companies. Mark Zuckerberg may now testify in front of Congress. These are real consequences of what's going on.
Until now, Zuckerberg and other tech CEOs have generally sent lawyers or deputies to testify before Congress.
I would like to see Mr. Zuckerberg, not his lawyer, Mr. Zuckerberg, in the flesh.
But the growing chorus of frustrated lawmakers and users seems to have forced a new course of action.
He knows that if he doesn't do it, he's going to just get absolutely crushed by the media, by politicians, possibly, most importantly, perhaps to him, by Facebook's users.
Wired senior writer Jesse Hempel is here with more on the importance of Mark Zuckerberg's response to this data mining scandal. Good to see you.
Thank you for having me.
So after the barrage of bad news about Facebook's conduct with our personal data, will testifying on Capitol Hill help Mark Zuckerberg? It doesn't lead to change, but...
That is a great question. And first of all, I think it will help Mark Zuckerberg because Mark Zuckerberg is the face of this company. And so if he doesn't testify, it's crisis. But you have the little question of how well will he present. And what we know about Mark, and what I can tell you from interviewing him many times over the last decade and a half, is that he's not the best public speaker. And when he's nervous, he's really not. And then you have what he has to say. And we haven't heard that yet.
Right. So they've announced these new privacy changes. That's great. But is the damage done? I mean, is this really going to make a difference?
You know, I applaud them for announcing new privacy changes. I think it's the least they can do. But they do this every few years.
Right.
I mean, this is like textbook. They're like, we're going to make this easier for you all. Just wait. Give us a little time. It never works out.
Yeah. And often there's a backlash to it. Like you sort of see on Facebook, because people become confused and they think, this can't be just for, a good reason. There's got to be something else going on.
Right, and you have that moment where you were like, well, I just assumed my information is safe, and actually what this does is it exposes to me all the ways that I was wrong.
Right.
That does not feel good for users.
So a couple of things. One, about him testifying on the Hill. Yesterday on the evening news, we used a couple of shots of past CEOs on Capitol Hill, and it's a public shaming. It's going into the lion's den where, senators and congressmen and Congress folks, they get on this platform and they're all about the showboating, why did you do this? Why did you hurt the American people? And there's, either contrition or there's pushback from the CEOs. But what a lot of people realize is after all the pomp and circumstance, nothing actually ever gets done. Nothing comes out of those meetings or those testimonies, those testimonials where we see some actual change. Could we see some change here?
I hate to be pessimistic, but I think that what you say is this is how this works. There's a certain theater to it, right? And there are a couple things that need to change, right? I mean, Facebook needs immediately for the user perception of Facebook to change. But we are getting to a crucial point when it comes to regulation. And I think that the hope is that regulators will be able to step in and better protect consumers. Now, don't ask me what that means, because I, like no one else, I don't know.
Well, Mark Zuckerberg, in his interviews that he gave to television, and including to Nick Thompson at Wired, he essentially says that he's sort of open to regulation, but as long as it's the right regulation.
Right.
That's a quote, right? So sounds to me he's saying, like, I'm open to regulation as long as the kind of regulation that is good for me and good for Facebook.
You always have to look very carefully at the words he uses. And yeah, he does say he's open to regulation, which is exactly what you should say when you see it's coming, right? That's how you make friends in advance with the folks that you're about to spend a bunch of time with.
Yeah.
So I'll believe it when I see it.
In your latest piece, you talk about the fact that Facebook, has chosen to associate the company with Mark Zuckerberg because people don't trust institutions, they trust individuals. So now everything is sort of on him, his behavior, everything. And he delayed his response. And then it was, very controlled and sort of deliberate when he did respond. You think that damaged him a little bit damaged Facebook thus?
I think that the 5 days that he said nothing to us, he can never take back. And I think it's exactly what you say. I think that Facebook uniquely has an identity that is in line with the person who founded it. I mean, we all saw The Social Network in 2010, right? We understand that Facebook is Mark, and Mark is our #1 friend. And Mark has a whole team of people inside Facebook whose job it is to keep his profile up, to make sure his holiday pictures are A+. And so when he doesn't show up while we're in crisis, when he ghosts us, we don't forgive him for that.
That is so funny.
Let me sort of play a little bit of devil's advocate here, Jesse, and that a lot of people, including you, Anne-Marie, when I said to you, oh man, did you see what's going on with Facebook? You were like, my whole life is out there. Facebook probably knows everything, about me, probably more than my own family knows.
I've probably done 30 personality tests, so they know me way better than I know myself.
Anne-Marie is a sucker for these tests that, that appear on Facebook. And so, and then all of a sudden when you hear, some of that data that you've shared voluntarily with Facebook is now somehow being used in a fashion that you may not have been aware that they could possibly use it for, and it's like, oh, I've got my I'm all in a tither because this is happening. We have become a sharing society where people share things that they probably shouldn't even share on Facebook all the time. So are we just using Facebook as a scapegoat, a boogeyman?
Well, and Facebook isn't the only platform that we use to share way too much data. I mean, my mortgage company probably has that much data about me and sells it, and I condone that. That's been true forever. Facebook is the face of a larger problem, the problem of big data and privacy, and it's so large and nebulous and intractable that we have no real way to understand it. And so we wait until one of these whistleblowers come along, and that will keep happening. And I would like to believe that eventually it will change consumer behavior.
In the middle of all this,
it will change consumer behavior. That's kind of interesting, right? We haven't really talked a lot about that. We're talking about Facebook changing its business model, the way that their best practices, but you just said something that I think is really kind of interesting, changing the way we interact with social media.
I think that you're right. Now, the thing about consumer behavior, is that what we love to do is say one thing and do another. So, just as you were saying, I'm done with that Facebook, until I plug in my Alexa and it asks me to plug in everything through Facebook, and then that's just easier, and I'm going to do it because it's too late anyways.
So in the middle of all of this, though, we received more information, a bit of a bombshell about Android phone users, that Facebook was collecting information about their text messages, their phone calls, the duration, all that sort of stuff. I thought it has been interesting that all of this has been focused on Facebook and perhaps not on the devices as well. And I wondered when that would come up, and then this Android thing comes up. Do you think maybe there's enough blame to go around here?
Well, that is Facebook, right? It's not a device problem. That's a software problem, and it's about what Facebook made available to its app developers. It allowed its app developers to collect that information. Now, here's the thing. We, at least tacitly, we knew that. So what's happening right now is a reckoning. It's a social reckoning. We are saying, wait, the rules that we had when we didn't quite understand the purview of these technologies aren't the right rules for us anymore, and we need to redevelop them. And Facebook is definitely the face for that.
Before we let you go, I just want to, because a lot of people on social media, I've been doing this story for a couple of days now, and people on social media, we've gotten into a place in this country where everything is about politics, and so there's a lot of people who feel that the reason this story has come to the forefront is because it's about President Trump and the Cambridge Analytica side of the story, and how they use that data. People say to me, well, what about, what did Hillary Clinton do? What did Barack Obama do when he was running for re-election in 2012, when everybody in the media was applauding his use of social media and Facebook to reach young voters and people who may have not voted? And I want to just hammer this point home, which is that there is a difference when it comes to what Cambridge Analytica is alleged to have done versus what President Obama or Hillary Clinton did when they were running for office, right?
I want to be really clear. There is a very big difference.
Yes, explain that difference for our viewers.
Starting with the fact that Cambridge Analytica essentially used data that had been collected for academic research purposes and then essentially sold out the back door to Cambridge Analytica. I mean, starting there, this is a very different and I would argue very unethical approach to targeting consumers.
That's what we wanted to drive home.
Jesse Hempel from Wired, thank you so much, Jesse.
Thank you for having me.
Well, still to come.